I work the front desk at a Copenhagen hotel. An American couple checked in last week and asked how far the city center was. One said 2 kilometers. The husband squinted at me like I'd spoken ancient Greek. Can you translate that to real numbers? He asked. His wife nodded along. We don't do the metric thing. Told him it was about 1.2 miles. He shook his head. See, that's confusing. Just say 1.25 miles. I explained we use kilometers in Denmark. He leaned on the counter. But you speak English, so you know miles, I reminded him. English doesn't mean American units. He asked if I had a conversion chart. I gave him one. He studied it for 30 seconds, then looked up. This doesn't make sense. Why is everything in tens? I said that's how metric works. But why? I told him it's universal. He said, not in America. He left the chart on the counter and asked if we had a map with normal measurements. My colleague in Norway once dealt with an American tourist who insisted the speed limit signs were wrong. The signs said 80. He was convinced that meant 80 miles per hour on a residential street. When she explained it was kilometers, he said, then put mph on the sign. She told him this was Norway. He replied, okay, but tourists drive here too. Pharmacy worker in Germany told me an American asked for Tylenol in regular strength, not that European weak stuff. She explained dosages were the same. He said American medicine was stronger because we don't mess around with half measures. The dosage was 500 milligrams. He thought metric meant smaller. She showed him the bottle. He said, yeah, but what's that in real measurements? These stories share one thing. Americans confronting the metric system and deciding it must be wrong. I drive a taxi in Amsterdam. An American tourist got in and asked how far the Anne Frank house was. I said 3 kilometers. He paused. Is that far? I told him about 10 minutes. He frowned. But how far? I repeated, 3 kilometers. He said, I don't know what that means. I offered him miles, roughly 1.8. He pulled out his phone, typed for a minute, then looked up. That's basically 2 miles, I confirmed. He sat back, annoyed. Why not just say to miles? I explained Holland uses metric. He said, but you knew what I meant, so you know miles. Out. I told him I converted for him. Then why not use miles normally? I said because we use kilometers. He spent the rest of the ride muttering about how Europe makes everything complicated. When we arrived, he asked what the meter said. I told him, 15 euros. He squinted at the meter display. Wait, why does it say 3.0? I explained that showed kilometers traveled. He looked betrayed. You charged me by the kilometer? I said yes. That's how taximeters work everywhere. Not in America, he said, handing me a 20. We use miles because they make sense. A train conductor in France had an American demand a refund because the speed display showed 160. He'd filmed it on his phone as evidence the train was dangerously fast. She explained it was kilometers per hour, about 100 miles per hour, which was normal for high-speed rail. He didn't believe her. That's still too fast, he said. She told him this was the slowest train on the route. He said, then why does the sign say 160? She repeated, kilometers. He asked why they didn't use normal speed measurements. She said this was normal in France. He insisted the train was breaking the law. What law? She asked. American safety laws, he replied. She reminded him he was in France. He said safety was universal. She asked if he wanted to file a complaint. He did. The complaint form asked for his speed concern. He wrote going 160 in a 55 zone. She didn't have the heart to tell him French highways had no 55 zones. My sister works at a car rental in Munich. An American returned a vehicle furious about the fuel gauge. It says 45 liters, but I only put in 10 gallons, he told her. She explained the tank measured liters. He said the pump measured gallons. She corrected him. The German pump showed liters. He showed her his receipt. It said 42 liters. She confirmed that was correct. He insisted he'd pumped 10 gallons. She did the math. 10 gallons was about 38 liters. He'd actually pumped 42, so he got more than 10 gallons. He refused to accept this. I know how much I pumped, he said. She showed him the conversion. He studied it, then looked up. So you're saying your liters are bigger than our gallons? She explained liters and gallons were different units. Yeah, but yours are bigger. She said no. Gallons were bigger than liters. He pointed at the numbers. Then why is 42 more than 10? She took a breath. Because you pumped 11 gallons, not 10. He shook his head. I stopped at 10. She asked how he knew. The pump said 10 point something. She realized he'd read 10 point something and assumed it meant gallons. It had been liters the whole time. He'd pumped about 2.6 gallons. His tank wasn't full. He drove off, convinced European fuel was concentrated. I'm a pharmacist in Stockholm. An American tourist came in asking for fever medication. I asked her temperature. 102, she said. I paused. That would be fatal in Celsius. I asked if she meant Fahrenheit. She looked confused. Is there another kind? I told her we use Celsius in Sweden. She asked what her temperature was in that. I converted about 39 Celsius. She stared. That sounds way worse. I assured her it was the same fever. She wasn't convinced. But 100 sounds bad. 39 sounds like nothing. I explained Celsius used a different scale. Water froze at 0, boiled at 100. She said, okay, but body temperature is 98.6, so 102 is just 4 degrees over. Told her body temperature was 37 Celsius, so 39 was 2 degrees over. Same difference. She looked suspicious. Why would you make it more confusing? I said it wasn't more confusing. It is if you don't grow up with it, she replied. I gave her paracetamol. She read the box. 500 milligrams? How much is that in regular? I told her that was regular. But what's it in ounces? I explained medicine used milligrams everywhere. Even America? I confirmed. She seemed doubtful, but accepted it. As she left, she asked what the temperature outside was. I said 12 degrees. She asked if she needed a jacket. I said yes. She looked at me like I was insane. 12 degrees? That's freezing. I clarified. 12 Celsius, about 54 Fahrenheit. She laughed. You should have just said that. The weather presenter in Berlin told me an American emailed the station claiming their forecast was wrong. The email said the website listed temperatures in the teens and 20s, but it was clearly hot outside, not freezing. The presenter replied, explaining Celsius. The American responded, then why does your website use English? The presenter said the site had a language option. The American wrote back, English means Fahrenheit. The presenter tried explaining units and language were separate. The American insisted that if the site was in English, it should use Fahrenheit to avoid confusion. The presenter asked if the American expected British weather sites to use Fahrenheit. The American replied, Britain uses miles, so probably. The presenter gave up. A week later, the American emailed again. Today your site said 32 degrees, and it's hot, not freezing. The presenter realized 32 Celsius was about 90 Fahrenheit. She wrote back explaining. The American responded, 32 is freezing. Water freezes at 32, the presenter clarified. In Fahrenheit, yes. In Celsius, water froze at 0. The American replied, that's confusing. The presenter agreed to disagree. I manage a swimming pool in Brussels. An American family visited last summer. The father asked the water temperature. I said 28 degrees. He turned to his kids. Too cold. Let's go. I stopped him. 28 Celsius was about 82 Fahrenheit. Perfect swimming weather. He didn't believe me. 28 is below freezing, he said. I explained Celsius. He looked at the pool. Kids were swimming, clearly comfortable. He squinted. They must be European, I confirmed. So they're used to cold water. Told him the water was warm. He dipped his hand in. Oh, he turned to his family. It's fine, actually. His wife asked why I'd said it was cold. I hadn't. You said 28 degrees? I repeated, Celsius. She asked why we didn't just use Fahrenheit. I said because we were in Belgium. The father nodded. Fair enough. And he asked if the pool depth was in meters. I said yes, 1.5 meters at the shallow end. He asked what that was in feet. I said about 5 feet. He frowned. Why not just say 5 feet? I told him the sign said meters. He walked over to read it, came back. The sign's wrong, he said. It says 1.5, I repeated. Meters. He looked genuinely confused. So the pool's only 5 feet total? I clarified. 5 feet in the shallow end. The deep end was 3 meters, about 10 feet. He shook his head. Europe's exhausting. I work at a hardware store in Oslo. An American needed screws for a home project. He asked for 1/4-inch screws. I showed him metric sizes. He examined them. Do you have them in inches? I explained we sold metric hardware in Norway. He picked up a pack. What's 6 millimeters in inches? I told him about 1/4 inch. He held up the pack. So this is what I need? I confirmed. He looked frustrated. Then why not label it 1/4 inch? I said because it was 6 millimeters. He asked why that mattered. I explained metric was standard. He sighed. But you knew what I meant. I did, because I'd dealt with this before. He bought the screws. At the register, he asked if we had a tape measure in normal measurements. I showed him one with both inches and centimeters. He studied it. Why are there 2 sets of numbers? I explained it showed both systems. He nodded slowly. Which one's right? I told him both were right. He looked unconvinced. They can't both be right if they're different. I said they measured the same thing differently. He held up the tape measure. But this says 30 centimeters is about 12 inches. That's not the same. I explained 30 centimeters was exactly 12 inches. He checked again. It says 11.8, I clarified. Approximately 12. He put the tape measure back. I'll just eyeball it. The metric system isn't confusing. It's just different. And when you're convinced your way is the only way, different feels like wrong. Americans grow up with Fahrenheit, miles, and pounds. They visit Europe expecting conversions, not realizing most of the world doesn't convert. We just use metric. It's not stubbornness. It's just how we measure things. The American confusion comes from confidence. They're not asking to understand. They're asking us to confirm their system is better. When we don't, it feels like we're being difficult. We're not. We're just Norwegian, German, French, Swedish. We measure in kilometers because that's how roads are marked. We measure temperature in Celsius because that's what thermometers show. We're not trying to confuse anyone. We're just living in our own countries. The funny part isn't that Americans don't know metric. It's that they're so sure we should know imperial. And when we do, they're surprised we don't just use it next time. Americans who don't believe other countries have their own holidays,